The wild truth behind the Kakko trade has been revealed. We also have some shocking comments from GM Chris Drury about the trade and what the team might be doing moving forward in terms of another trade, and Will Borgan. Where does he fit in with this team? We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 74% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to do yourself a favor, it's free. Hit that subscribe button and you get to stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. Now, there's been a lot made out of the Kakko trade, and I'm going to try and break it all down the best I can in this video about why it was made and, obviously Will Borgan coming in. So, obviously yesterday, the Seattle Kraken acquired Kakko from the New York Rangers in return for Will Borgan, a third-round pick in this year's draft, and a sixth-round pick in this year's draft. Now, this is not a great return for Kakko. It's not. I mean, on paper, maybe because of his stats this year, and obviously he hasn't put up good numbers over his NHL career. But in terms of, getting a return back for a former second overall pick, not a great trade. There was a lot of speculation about the New York Rangers trading Kakko because of what he said the other day, and Kevin Weeks put that to bed pretty quickly. Per sources, I'm told that the Kakko trade was in no way connected to his comments yesterday. New York Rangers like and respect him. He's a pending RFA and 1 year away from UFA status. This move is best for both sides. They wish him nothing but the best. And I personally wish him nothing but the best because I think he's a great player and that the New York Rangers, unfortunately, were not able to develop him properly and mismanaged him a little bit. Now, it is a two-way street. He should have played a little bit better in most situations, and over the last couple of years, he didn't really progress too much. But again, it is a two-way street. The organization had their hand in that. But in Kakko, is a young defense-first winger. We know that. That's what he brought to the table. He was barely scored on this season, 5-on-5. Didn't really play in any other situations, but a really good defensive player. Offensive upside wasn't really there this season. We've seen that in the past as well. At times he struggled, but again, playing very mid offensively, and again, he's lacking creativity. All these other things that Jay Fresh says here, obviously it wasn't really working out to a degree, but the return again is disappointing. And he's been speaking out recently too on the Rangers and everything that's been going on behind the scenes. I was surprised to be scratched. I know you got to do something as a coach when you're losing games, but I think it's just easy to pick on a young guy and boot him out. That's how I feel, to be honest. So he was kind of sick and tired of the same old status quo. Oh, they got to send a message. They got to scratch somebody. Yeah, so scratch one of your better players this season instead of the guys that are making all the money and not doing anything on the ice, like Mika Zibanejad, like Chris Kreider, like maybe not Artemi Panarin, but you get the drift. There's a couple guys, in the lineup this year who are making tons of money that aren't playing up to not only their contract, but even up, like play for your own pride as an athlete, right? It's been really bad so far this season. So we'll get into Will Borgan in a second because he is entering a tough situation into this dressing room and organization. But we'll get to Will Borgan in a second. But I want to get to another quote from Kakko, and he is right? There is a couple problems I'm seeing with this organization, this team right now. He hasn't been on the ice too much when opponents score a goal. I have not been the worst guy, but that was me out of the lineup. So he was obviously not happy with the fact that he was scratched over, anybody else at this point, really. And I have to agree with him. I mean, it took him till about mid-November to even get scored on while he was on the ice so far this season. And in a season that has gone the way it has, I think that's pretty impressive. I think that says something about his game, and especially with the way that the Rangers have been playing, this unsustainable way of relying on your goaltenders. There is something to be said about that. So, clearly he wasn't happy here. I'm sure he's going to do fine with another team. Unfortunately for the Rangers, right? Really couldn't figure it out here. And let's not pretend like the Rangers, because a lot of people are calling this player a bust, and to a degree, sure. Yeah, he hasn't put up the numbers that a second overall pick should. But let's not pretend like the Rangers are the best team or best organization at developing young players, right? Notoriously, the Rangers will go out and trade for their talent or sign them in free agency. So they've had a tough time developing their own young talent. But that being said, Will Borgan, what does he bring to this team? What is the plan for him? He's arriving to a tough situation. I thought this was pretty funny. But Will Borgan, acquired for the New York Rangers by the New York Rangers, is a third pair defenseman who kills penalties, throws hits, takes shots from the perimeter. Now, his numbers are not great. This is a guy who's on a lot of teams radar, right? Like, it was reported that he was probably going to be moved before the trade deadline or at the trade deadline. A lot of teams were keeping an eye on this player to kind of bolster up their defense, but the New York Rangers have had them on their radar for quite some time, according to different reports from Chris Johnson and Molly Walker. And this is a guy who, to me, looks like it's going to be a Jacob Trouba replacement, a much cheaper Jacob Trouba replacement by quite a bit. He only makes $2.7 million for the rest of this year, and then he is a free agent. He's a right shot defenseman as well. So looks like he's going to be the Jacob Trouba replacement on this blue line. Victor Mancini has been sent down in relation to this trade as well to the Hartford Wolfpack, because I'd rather and obviously the organization would rather him just get into games in the AHL than sit in the press box every other game or something like that instead of playing all the time. And his NHL numbers have taken a dip analytically. That is Victor Mancini I'm talking about. But Borgan's had a somewhat tough time under Bilesma in Seattle, usually very clean with taking hits to receive pucks, or retrieve pucks, but he's had a lot of turnovers this year. Still reliable with getting pucks out and providing offense. And he loves to shoot from the point, so that could help the New York Rangers in that way. Again, I said yesterday in a video, the initial trade video, that I think that there is potential here that if the Rangers, because he is a free agent at the end of this year and a lot of teams had him on their radar, if the Rangers are well out of a playoff spot come the trade deadline and do not look like they're going to make the playoffs, this is a player, this is a trade that allows them to have a lot of flexibility where they can then flip this player at the trade deadline and get assets for him. So not too bad in that way, but again, you're hoping to get a little bit more for Kakko. And there's some tough stats that go along with Will Borgan. And again, Seattle's not the greatest team. New York Rangers aren't either, but this player does have some use. But there are 137 defensemen this year with at least 400 5-on-5 minutes. Will Borgan ranks second last amongst them in expected goals for with a 40.18. And so that's not great. Not great. And Will Borgan, the plan is for Will Borgan to join the Rangers in Dallas. He will play in Dallas tomorrow night with the Rangers. And again, from multiple reports, he's somebody that the team has had their eye on for quite some time. Again, the stats do not look good, but he has much less, I keep saying he's a Jacob Trouba replacement, much less offensive upside than Jacob Trouba. This is a defenseman, a defensive defenseman who likes to shoot, but from the perimeter. No really high danger scoring chances or anything like that. But lastly, I wanted to get into an interesting quote from GM Chris Drury. It's my job and 31 other GM's jobs to try and do everything we can to help our team. Drury said this during a recent conference call. There's things at our disposal in the collective bargaining agreement, the CBA. I'm not trying to mess with players. I have a ton of respect for Barclay and certainly, as I said already, for Jacob. I'm just trying to do the best I can to move the team forward and make the changes that I think are necessary. And I said it last week when Jacob Trouba was traded, and obviously all this noise started with the team not, agreeing with the way that Chris Drury was going about things. This is a business. Chris Drury has to make this team better. He saw that Barclay Goodrow's contract was going to be a bit of an anchor. And yes, these players are all human and these things do affect them. But at the end of the day, it is a business. He's trying to make the team better. The team isn't better, but he's trying to move the team forward into the next era per se, because a lot of these guys are getting older. Obviously, Jacob Trouba, with the way the team has performed this year, Jacob Trouba wasn't going to usher in this new era or anything like that. We knew he was going to be moved off of. $8 million was too much for what he was bringing to the table. And again, Barclay Goodrow, although those are guys that help you in the playoffs, he's trying to retool the team here. And I think if the team was playing great from the start of the season till now, there'd be no issues. The team would still be together and they'd be going for it. But that's not the way that the season has gone. And the players have certainly showed that they've almost given up at this point. So it's not great, not a great situation in New York. But let me know in the comments what you think of the Will Borgan acquisition. I think he can help in some areas, and I think there is some flexibility for them to then flip him if need be at the trade deadline if they are not in a playoff spot. But let me know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.